Okay, welcome back to On the Ball, the video podcast series from the Vanderbilt Sports and Society Initiative. Really excited to have James Threalkill with us today. If you're a Vanderbilt fan or alum, you know James, former football player and one of Nashville's best visual artists these days, and just very involved with a lot of events that have been happening around town. And at Vanderbilt really gives his time back to student athletes here and is involved with former player organizations. So, James, thank you for joining us today.
Andrew, thank you for having me. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here with you, especially after the wonderful occasion I had to go see the Perry Wallace Strong Inside stage play at Children's Museum. Man, congratulations. That was an outstanding performance. It was so well done. And it was great seeing the Vanderbilt basketball women and men's teams there and the Vanderbilt community to come out and support that event. So it was an awesome, awesome occasion.
Oh, thank you, James. I was just thinking that was the last time that I saw you was at that show. And it was very, like you said, it just made me proud to see such a nice turnout from Vanderbilt athletics there.
Absolutely.
You know, former student athletes like yourself, but current players. I think it's important, you know, if you wear Vanderbilt on your chest, that like, you know who Perry Wallace was. That should
Absolutely.
be a requirement of it, you know. And
Yes, sir.
I had a chance to speak to both the men's and women's teams before they went to see the play, so they would have some context about Perry. And it was nice to know that that meant a lot, you know, to Coach Stackhouse and Coach Ralph, that they would they wanted their teams to know this story. And then Coach Lee was there 2 days before a football game. You know, he came with his
I
kids
saw him as well.
to see the show. And Candace, of course, was there, and the whole university very supportive of that play. Obviously, Perry being one of the most significant alums in the history of the school. But yeah, I mean, and that is another example of sports and the arts coming together.
No question about it. And you know, the thing that stood out to me was just the quality of the kids that I met. And it's just a testament to the outstanding job that the coaches are doing in recruiting, you know, just very talented kids that are good individuals. I mean, all of them were very pleasant to talk to and mannerable. And I was just so proud to see that group of kids come in the way they did. Young adults.
I felt the same way. You know, you like to see that. And I'm sure that's especially meaningful to you being a former player and, you know, someone who has invested a lot of time into this notion of honoring the pioneers.
Absolutely.
You know, not just Perry, but football pioneers, and not just the first either, but really the first decade of pioneers is the way it's been approached in terms of the football team. But, you know, you created the pathway for those athletes who are here today. And so for you to have a relationship with them or even just a chance to meet them and talk at events like this, I'm sure is very meaningful for you.
Yeah, it's really special. And you know, I'm honored with the respect that they show to me as a former player. But, you know, when you come into a setting like that, similar to Perry Wallace and the pathways that he provided for my generation to come through, you're so proud to see the tangible outcomes of, you know, going through whatever struggles you went through during the time that, you know, we were in school, and to see the kids in this day and time benefit from, you know, the changes that the university made to make things more accommodating to students and all of that. And so it's a wonderful thing to see unfold, because that legacy will continue to be passed on, because as this current generation understands what people like Perry and Godfrey went through and others, then they can be sensitive to the importance of doing what they can to make sure that future students have an even better scenario for them. And that's what it's supposed to be about. And then just the importance of a university showing its historical legacy to a student, so that they know that, you know, there were some people there before them that kind of, you know, represented what they were coming into, and how, you know, a lot of times you think you're on an island when you, especially when you leave home to go to school, and then you can come and find out stories about Perry Wallace and Doug Nettles and things like that. It just gives them, to me, a more sense of a grounded foundation in terms of their role and how they fit into the entire process.
Yeah, I really think of it like it's like a relay, you know, and
Good question.
your generation passed on a legacy to other generations, now it's their turn to take that baton, but then to pass it along to somebody else and improve things along the way. And it's a relay that never stops too. That's been
That's right.
impressed upon me too, is just, there's been a lot obviously written or performed now, or streets named after Perry. And if you've been around Nashville for a while, I think you can get a false assumption. Well, everybody knows that story now, like that story has been told. But, living or working on a college campus, you realize there's a whole new batch of thousands of people every year that don't know anything about the history of the school,
Absolutely.
And so you can't stop telling these stories.
Yeah. And I was driving on campus the other day and was pleasantly surprised when I came down 21st and saw a street named Vivian Thomas Way.
Yes.
After the pioneering doctor from the movie Something the Lord Made, that Mos Def so incredibly portrayed. But just seeing things like that are so fulfilling in terms of looking at how people's sacrifices live on even through this day and time.
Yeah, absolutely. Those physical markers are important in a space that wasn't always hospitable to those individuals themselves, so
no question about it. And, especially for me, having grown up here in Nashville, Tennessee, where a lot of the civil rights movement planning and other things took place, especially when you consider Dr. King saying that Nashville was one of the foremost locations. When you look at people like Z. Alexander Luby and Avon Williams and Reverend Kelly Miller Smith, and how Nashville plays such an important role in that process. And to see how, people like John Lewis and others left their indelible mark on this community in terms of, creating an environment for all people to strive toward, a harmonious society. And it's just really something of such gratitude to grow up in a community where you see those kind of things evolve, even to the point of Vanderbilt having, coaches like Jerry Stackhouse and Dr. Lee as the athletic director and that kind of thing, and those kind of strides. And, we all say that, there's more that can be done and there's a lot more work to do. But, I count those steps as small victories when you look at, what society used to be during that particular era and what is represented in this day and time. And so, me along with the other guys that I went to school with, like Dennis Harrison and Wayman Buggs and others, man, we're just proud to be a part of that legacy, because that's something that's historically significant, and just proud of the role that I played in that process.
That's awesome to hear. And I want to talk more about the different roles that you have, and including the role as an artist in this community. And so behind you is a piece of art that, before we hit play, you mentioned you're working on right now for an upcoming show. And so can you tell the audience about this show that's coming up and your role in that as the featured artist?
Yeah, happy to do so. I worked in the Edge Hill community during the mid-90s, and had some talented kids coming from the Edge Hill public housing community. And when I identified a student that was making like straight A's in public schools, super talented, I reached out to the University School of Nashville, the old Peabody Demonstration School, and just said, hey, I got a kid up here at this community center who is super talented and needs to be challenged more. And so they made it possible for him to attend the University School of Nashville, and he excelled. I mean, this was a kid that was drawing on grocery bags when I met him at the center, because he had to wait till his mother went to the store to cut up the grocery bags to use for art surfaces. Well, I was running an art program where I was able to bring him in and introduce him to quality art materials and other types of things that made him flourish even more. Kid was introverted, ended up being a forensic champion, and he's now a journalist for the U.S. Army over in Germany. I mean, that's how much of a stride that kid made. But that school was special to the point where when it was time for my daughter to go to high school, that's where she went. And she graduated in 2011. And so they've always had this incredible art show called Artclectic that I participated in over the years. And the show has grown exponentially into one of the best art shows in the state of Tennessee annually as a fundraiser for the school. And so this year they asked me if I would consider being the featured artist for the show. And man, when I tell you I was blown away, I mean, I revved up my paintbrushes that are already motorized and just, went to town just creating work just to live up to the challenge and the honor of them asking me to be the featured artist. And so the show is going to be October the 19th through the 21st. But that week of October the 16th, I'll be doing a lot of different activities on campus, painting demonstrations for students, workshops, and other things like that. And so I am just overly excited at this opportunity to serve in that role for this show. And so I'm excited about debuting a lot of new work, and it just has really inspired me even more as an artist who is already proficient and productive.
I know.
just crank out the work, man. I'm really excited about it. We had a preview party last week, and the turnout was outstanding, where they had a few of my pieces on display, and the response was overwhelming. So I'm anticipating a dynamic show, and I'm just trying to let as many of my friends and colleagues, including the Vanderbilt community, know about this upcoming show. Because the thing about it, Andrew, when I go out as an artist, I feel like I'm still representing Vanderbilt by the fact that I played sports there. And it was interesting, back during the mid 70s, you didn't have a lot of athletes that were majoring in art. I mean, I had one other teammate who was doing art, Ed Riley, who was incredibly talented. But, I had to go to the coaches and say, in the same way that you provide books and materials for the other athletes, I need paintbrushes and canvases to paint on,
Okay.
And so when they realized my talent as an artist, they had me to start doing the covers for the scouting report every week. And so when we would gather for the team meetings, man, I would sit there and just couldn't wait for them to see the cover of the scouting report. Because when I tell you the Vanderbilt Commodore just brutalized the Kentucky Wildcat, the Volunteer. I mean, I had the Commodore one time as Muhammad Ali knocking out the Kentucky Wildcat. Man, it was just so much fun taking those mascots and just having that Commodore take them through all kind of scenarios. And the guys got such a big kick out of seeing what the press what the cover was going to look like for that particular week. And it helped to inspire and motivate them before the games, man. Yeah. The only thing I didn't do is hold on to them after I turned them over to the coaches, because I've had several people say, man, do you have any of those back then? Because they were some classic covers, man.
Incredible. I was going to ask you if you had any. And so what years would this have been that you were doing that? Who were some of the coaches that were giving you the opportunity with the paintbrushes and to do the scouting reports?
This was when Coach Pankos had come in 1975, and my position coach, Charles Whittemore, said, man, we need to get you to start doing the program covers for the scouting report. And man, we did things like watch the Outlaw Josie Wales movie and different things like that before games. So the next week, man, I would have the Commodore as Josie Wales. he was taking out villains, man. So these schools have no idea how their mascots got abused back then by the Commodore.
That's funny. And were you painting these in the somewhat similar to the style I see behind you, or is this a different form? Or how did you do them?
Yeah, these were exclusively drawn covers.
Okay.
Where I was just using pen and ink to do the renderings, and then the coaches printed them out and put them on the cover of the scouting report, which was stapled together and passed out to all the players. Okay. The style that you see behind me now actually was an evolution of my painting process, because I started out painting with a brush and doing a lot of realism in my paintings. And so one day in my studio, in an effort to just continually try to challenge myself and push myself, I said, let me pick up the palette knife and just do the whole painting with the palette knife to get textures and vibrant colors. And so when I put them on public display, the reaction was overwhelming to the point where I said, okay, I need to do more of this. And so for the past 10 years, this has become my signature style with the texture surfaces and the vibrant colors. And when people come by my booth at art shows, they said that they were drawn by the colors and the textures. And so that's really a nice outcome of just exploring and trying something. And I always tell young artists, you know, don't ever get complacent or content with the success that you're having, because you can always challenge yourself even more to come up with more approaches to your work. And in my case, it was such a profound approach that it ended up becoming my signature style. I'm known now more for these palette knife textures paintings than I am for the brushwork that I do and still do in the case of commissions where people want portraits and different things like that.
And so when you were at Vanderbilt as a student playing football and also developing as an artist, did you find that the time you spent working on your art was therapeutic in some way? I know you also went through a significant injury while you were playing football. How did art fit into that? You know, did you feel that your two lives, the two sides of you, were complementary, or were you was it I mean, you mentioned it was unusual to be an artist on the football team, but it seems like that they fit together pretty well for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Art has always been therapeutic, cathartic for me, because being in my space with my paint and my ideas and my canvas, man, it's just an environment that you can totally immerse yourself into. I listen to all types of music, from jazz to classical to country to R&B to rap, and it just creates an environment of solitude where you're just really in touch with your creative energy. And so that's been my companion over the years, because when I was in school, it was very frustrating to come out of East High School as an All-American athlete who everybody said had the potential of going pro, and then to sustain an injury that really diminished my chances of doing that. And so being able to, you know, express my feelings through art really helped me deal with a lot of the potential depressing scenarios that I could have faced. And so even to this day, art is just such a wonderful companion. Even when I worked in corporate America for 20 years as a diversity and inclusion director, I still maintain my emphasis on my art, to the point where when I was in meetings with individuals, corporate meetings, and I just happened to mention that I'm an artist and they see my work, they're like, God, why are you working here, man? You be in a studio somewhere cranking it out. And I said, one day, that's the goal, you know? And so after I retired from that industry, man, I just dove head first into, you know, my art. And it's just been wonderful how many opportunities have come my way. You know, you're always apprehensive because you grow up with that notion of the starving artist.
Right.
You know, a lot of people discourage young people from going into the arts because of that notion. But my parents were very supportive in terms of, you know, giving me the confidence that I could pursue the art. But you still have in the back of your mind, can I do this exclusively with art as the catalyst for maintaining my lifestyle? And so it's been a wonderful blessing to, you know, my calendar is almost full with either commission projects or other projects that, you know, I'm considering or involved in and that kind of thing. And so to wake up every morning, Andrew, and know that I'm going into my studio to work is a wonderful feeling. I would think in the same way that you feel about your writing, man. I mean, it's like when you're doing what you're passionate about and what you feel like you were put here on this earth to do, it's an incredible feeling. And so I always try to motivate and encourage young people who have an interest in art to, you know, believe in their potential and their dreams, to follow that, man. And so, you know, I tell people all the time, I cannot imagine not being an artist, even with, you know, the skills that I acquired in going to college at Vanderbilt and being able to work in other professions. And, you know, my mother told me before I left for college, she said, now everybody's telling you how great you are, but what are you going to do in the event that an injury happens? You never neglect your art because you might have to fall back on it. And so she was prophetic in that my second year at Vanderbilt in preseason scrimmage, I had been moved from wide receiver to tight end and worked my way up to second on the depth chart behind Barry Burton. And in preseason practice, I caught a pass, made it down to the 2-yard line. And nobody told me that, unlike high school, if a guy grabs you, you go down, you know, because in high school, I used to fight 2 or 3 defenders and trying to stay up. So I tried that in college, and 3 guys tried to go 3 different directions with my body.
Oh, no.
I ended up breaking my ankle, breaking my leg, and having torn ligaments all in one injury, man. First time I'd ever had an injury. And so, you know, it was really something. But when that injury happened and I got up and tried to walk on that foot and didn't feel anything, I sat back down, and then my mother's words rung through my mind.
Wow.
What are you going to do if you get injured, you know? And so I just put my emphasis on my art. You know, I did the rehabilitation to get back out there and continue to play. But from that point, I knew that the aspirations of being a pro football player had now turned to the aspirations of one day being an artist.
Incredible. What a valuable lesson for any athlete today. You know, you have those NFL dreams, but also need to be thinking about their futures if it doesn't pan out.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, so important.
Do you feel like, obviously, to be an artist, it takes incredible talent, it takes hard work. Do you think everybody has an artist potentially within them, or no?
That's a great question. I guarantee you that they do. And, you know, it's funny, if every time I have a conversation about art, somebody says, I can't draw a stick figure. I've heard that so many times.
Right.
But the thing is, my response is, I could sit down with you for an hour and create something that you never thought you'd be capable of creating, and something that you'd be extremely proud of. Because the thing is, we all are creative beings. And the art world is expansive enough that everything doesn't necessarily have to be something that you recognize. Abstract art is such a prolific part of the art world, where you're just taking colors and creating patterns and different things like that. And so it's a matter of being exposed to the fundamentals of what it's like to create something, and then tapping into what your particular style or interest is, whether it be trying to draw a fruit bowl that looks like an actual fruit bowl, or whether it's trying to just take some colors and create a pattern that would look nice on a wall. And when you go through, you know, offices and hospitals and other things, you see realistic portrayals, but you also see abstract art. And then the other component is, people have the capacity to put together floral arrangements or decorate a room, or design ads for, you know, a marketing campaign. It is so broad that that umbrella covers everybody, because somebody has something creative about them. And, you know, I always say that when schools run into funding issues, the first things they seem to want to cut are the art programs. Right. And what I've said to administrators is that when you think about it, art impacts everything else that they do subject-wise. A creative approach to doing math, a creative approach to how you get involved in English or science or what have you. So we all have some component of creative expression within us, and it's just a matter of having it tapped into and brought out by someone who understands that process. That's why I spent so many years teaching, because it was so much fun capturing that young talent at an early age. Just like my first grade teacher at J.C. Napier Elementary School told my mom in the first grade that James is drawing all day, he's going to be an artist, you know? And so here I was, a kid growing up in public housing community. My first grade teacher identified my talent. My mom tapped into it, bought me my first oil painting set when I turned 13 years old. And then fast forward years later, I'm sitting face to face with Nelson Mandela in South Africa, because I'm coordinating an art project over in Soweto and Johannesburg.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Places it has taken you.
Absolutely, incredible. Man. It's been amazing. It's been amazing.
What's the state of art right now? Like, I think about maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, 20 years ago, people start to use like computers to create art. Right now you have artificial intelligence, and I know that is a concern. I assume it is.
Right. Right.
Like,
Right.
what are artists saying about this and what it means for their ability to be artists, to live off of their skills?
Yeah, the first thing is in Nashville, when I graduated from Vanderbilt, I couldn't wait to get out of town because I knew that trying to be an artist in Nashville at that time was unheard of. It was just not culturally astute enough for somebody to really try to pursue a career as an artist. So I moved to Chicago until it snowed and ran me back home. And then I moved to California for a while. But the state of affairs for the arts in Nashville is so vibrant in this day and time. And a great indication of that is the public art that you see throughout our city. There are murals
Mhm.
all over the city, even the wings down in the
Yes.
Gulch, where there's a long line of people waiting to just take a picture with those wings. So that issue about the artificial intelligence. Now, computer generated art, that's a legitimate component
Right,
of art
right.
because when you look at some of my favorite movies like Toy Story and the things that were done with computer animated movie characters, man, that stuff is amazing. It still blows me away. But what we're finding now, even the actor strike that seems to be coming to an
Hmm.
end, one of their concerns is how artificial intelligence is being used to replace human capacity. And so I looked at it more or less from an actor standpoint until I was watching TV the other day and saw where this artist had an exhibit where they had gone into AI and created art images. And then I was like, whoa,
Hmm.
man. So now, from an artist standpoint, you're thinking, okay, there's the potential of being replaced with, artificial intelligence in terms of creating images and that kind of thing. And so I guess a lot of it depends on how the public reacts to it and
Right.
receives it. But to me, there's still a homegrown, holistic, tangible component of creating art with your own hands and the natural component of aesthetic values that's associated with that. So it's nothing that I'm intimidated about
Mhm.
because, I know that what I do for the love of it, but also for those individuals who appreciate knowing that the work was created by an artist who use his brushes or palette knives to create that work. And so, society is changing, technology is moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But you still, to me, have room for, the human spirit to play an important role in creating, natural aesthetic art for people to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the human experience has to be part of that,
No
or to me,
question about
it's
it.
not art. Yeah.
No question about it. I
Um,
mean,
so
it's almost like um, you wanting to do a follow up on the Pearl High basketball team with Walter Fisher and Ted Howell McClain, and somebody keys in something into AI and comes up with the story, as
yeah,
opposed to you sitting down and talking with those guys and getting their stories firsthand.
for sure. So when I walk through the halls here at McGugin, past an office suite on the first floor, I see a great painting you did in tribute to the football pioneers at
Mm-hmm.
Vanderbilt. I know you have many pieces across campus, Black Cultural Center, other spots.
Mm-hmm.
See the painting behind you. How important is it for you to sort of represent Black experience either in Nashville or Vanderbilt in this country through the art that you create?
Yeah, it's extremely important, Andrew, because I grew up in an era where there were so many misrepresented portrayals of Black people in media and in arts with the exaggerated features and all of those different types of things. And so a lot of the imagery I saw, I knew was unrealistic, unfair, discriminatory, and all of that. And so, from an artistic standpoint, I took it as a very important responsibility to make sure that I portray, our culture in a positive light. And one of the most significant parts of that is the fact that when we study past civilizations, a lot of times we study the art from that period to get a feel for what society is like. We look at the Sistine Chapel that Michelangelo painted, and other great masters who painted scenes from their time and period. And so as artists in this day and time, you fast forward 1,000 years, people are probably going to look back at what the art was like during this particular period. And so if they should happen to run by artwork by James Threalkill, I want to make sure that they see that I appreciated humankind, because you see diverse images in the people that I paint and the work that I do. But it's especially important when you look at how African Americans have been misrepresented, that through my work, I can show positive images. And one of the ways I do that is when I'm painting Black women, I lay my canvases flat and just pour the paint out to represent the hair, to get that natural textured look that is so much a part of the beauty of Black women's hair. For a long time, I never saw Black angels represented in media or anything like that. And so I started painting little girls as angels and that type of thing. And so I feel it's an important responsibility on my part. I love doing it. But when I look at people like Henry O. Tanner, who's the first Black artist I became aware of, and Aaron Douglas and the murals that he has over at Fisk University, and all of those great artists who were trying, especially in a more difficult time than I'm living in, to portray the image of African Americans in a positive way, just to give self-respect and hope to those individuals who were bombarded by all of those images that ended up on the packages of food and other types of public products that could be very dehumanizing if they didn't see any type of alternative images.
Okay, well, before we go, I wanted to remind people about the Artclectic show that you have at USN. If you could, and you're the featured artist there. Again, what goes into being the featured artist? It sounds like you'll be doing appearances at the school, and I'm sure your art will be displayed prominently at the show, but there will be other artists with their work at that show too, I assume. But if you could just close us out with more about that show and your role in it, that would be terrific.
Sure. Yeah, and thank you for that question. Artclectic is one of the best art exhibits that I participate in on an annual basis. They have great people planning and coordinating the show. You have some of the top artists in the region participating in this show. So the quality of work overall is exceptional. As the featured artist, of course, you get prominent placement in the gallery space and more space to hang work, but then also you're used in the advertisements for the show. You're used in the preliminary parties for elite collectors and that kind of thing. And then they have you involved in activities during the week at the school so the students can have an up close and personal experience with the artist. So I'll be painting on the lower school classroom floors where the students can change classes and see me working. And then I'll be painting outside for the after school kids and the parents who are coming up to pick up their kids. And then I'll be painting outside the director's office during the day so that the high school students can actually come and see me creating work on site. And so it just gives the featured artists a special distinction being affiliated with the show in that manner. And it's a tremendous honor, and I'm so proud of this opportunity. And I guaranteed them that I was going to step up to the occasion to make sure I put forth my best stuff. And so I am so pleased with the work that I've produced, and I just can't wait for the public to see it.
Okay. How many new pieces do you expect to display there?
Man, I turned in my inventory and it was a total of about 60 pieces.
60? Wow, wow.
So I know at least half of them are new compositions. But I'm telling you, Andrew, I have been cranking the work out.
Sounds like it.
Look, sometimes getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get started, man. So
wow.
I was blown away by them asking me to do it. So it's like getting ready for a big game, man. You prepare and you're ready to go.
No kidding. If for people who are not able to make it to that show, how can they, view your work? If they wanted to commission a work with you, what's the process for doing that?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm on Instagram at James Threalkill Art. Threalkill is Threalkill. My website is jamesthrillkillarts.com. And those are the best ways to view my work. I'm also in the Woodcuts Gallery, the African American Gallery in North Nashville next to Fisk, and the Chauvet Art Gallery on Fifth Avenue in downtown Nashville. So people can just Google my name and a lot of different options will come up, man. So I really appreciate you having me today to discuss my enthusiasm for this show that's coming up, but also just looking at, being a former Vanderbilt athlete and how I've been blessed with the opportunity to still use my art in different ways with the university and giving current students an opportunity to see the work I do. And the pioneer piece that you mentioned, the response from the players featured in that piece and being able to take that print of the original home, man, they thanked me profusely for that. So you can tell that it really meant a lot. So I appreciate the effort that you and Director Lee and the rest of the team put into accommodating the Black pioneers, because the things that we experienced back then, you all had nothing to do with, but you're making a tremendous effort in trying to accommodate these former players. And I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
No, well, it's a pleasure to be a part of. I mean, these guys laid their bodies, their lives on the line for Vanderbilt. So
No question.
the least that Vanderbilt can do is to honor them. And cool thing about art is it immortalizes them in a way,
Yeah, so true.
Yeah. Well, James, you're a great friend. You're a great artist. Thank you for coming on the show. Good luck with the show at USN. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Vanderbilt community there to see and to purchase your art. So best of luck with that. And thanks again.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it, my friend. Take care.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.